Welcome to the 1990 series. My name's Amanda O'Shea, the loving life coach from the Serendipity Experience, and I have with me the lovely Sue Pankiewicz from Suffolk. How you doing, Sue?
Oh, fine. Really well, thank you. Lovely to be here.
Oh, it's so lovely to have you here. So lovely to have you as part of the 1990 series. Sue, you were part of my journey from the very beginning of coming across the inside out understanding of the three principles, and that was 7 years ago for me. 7 years ago since I first met you.
Yeah,
That was a real special course, that first course that I was ever on.
it was. I have wonderful memories of people I met and the whole thing. Well, I think every occasion I've been on any kind of retreat with Jack or training, they're just wonderful experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we got introduced to, I don't know what did you describe yourself as anything? Do you have a title?
Not so much now. I was a teacher. I then kind of slowly but surely left teaching. I first of all went into education, special needs education with kiddies who'd been kicked out of school. And I loved that work. But when I came across principles, I was like one of those people that thought, the world needs me. I've heard something to share. And so I thought, well, I'll just create a business. I'll just be a coach. I mean, the naivety is stunning, really. But having said that, it's been a wonderful journey, absolutely wonderful. So not textbook. And now, well, the thing that I've done so many things within the community of the three principles, really. I used to work with, family members, Peter Anderson and Jenny Anderson, and before that was with Dean. We used to do introductory courses way back in I think 2005 and 6. So I've kind of tried lots of things with little mini retreats at my home, and I love that. So now it's more about, I think what it's mainly about now is connecting people. I mean, I still do mentoring. I really hate marketing, so I suppose that's been a bit of a handicap, if you like, to getting out there. But what's been wonderful is to get creative in a very playful way, and I couldn't have seen that coming, really. And I think some of the best things in life aren't the things you see coming. They kind of, maybe they pop out from a corner when you're least expecting them, so you haven't got your armour up on, and before you know it, you're having such a good time that it becomes what they call a no-brainer, I think.
A no-brainer. And of course, I mean, you've had your space for connection gatherings that, and the Viva event, which has probably taken up, I would imagine, quite a lot of your time in the last 5 years.
Yes, well, interestingly, we've just come off the back of one, and we're already planning and had several meetings about the one in November 2020. So yes, it does go through the year, but it's not full time, obviously. But it's a wonderful thing to be involved in.
Oh, of course, and that was amazing. And they've all been amazing, but yeah, the one that's the most freshest. And we've named today's little chat "Life Lessons," and just being around. I mean, it really is. I share this understanding in private practice, but also in the world of recovery and addiction at the moment. And it really is when I'm sort of whoever I'm speaking to, whether that's speaking to a group of people in the recovery center, or you're speaking to somebody on a leadership course or a training, it's really lessons for life, actually, that we're sharing. I mean, it's sort of like that simple. I love the front of Jack Pransky's Somebody Should Have Told Us book, which is like simple truths for living well. Yeah. So would you like to speak to a bit more of that? I mean, what is it that you've seen? What have you been seeing recently? We often talk about how simple this sort of understanding is, or we talk about the simplicity of it, but what's showing up for you recently?
I think what I'd say is that for so many years, despite the fact that I heard the words, do more of what you enjoy, don't take this too seriously, it's not in the words, it's in the information and the feeling. And I did pay attention to that, but at the same time I was really busy thinking, well, what does that actually mean? I need to work that out. And so I was still interested in the stuff of life, the things that were showing up in life, rather than what I've come to see is the constancy of being alive. Does that make sense? That I've become far more relaxed, far more trusting that there is a sense to all of this. There's a bigger picture. There's a continuity, and that I can lean on that, if you like, rather than thinking I've got to get my hands in there and shape it the way that I think it ought to be. And I think that's a really amazing feeling. And when we talk about, often people talk about gratitude, and I was in a yoga class the other day, and a wonderful teacher, and she was sort of talking about, the theme would be gratitude. And people were saying, yes, well, what they were grateful for, and how it helps to write it down. And I was thinking, yeah, that probably does. But my gratitude doesn't come off a list. It doesn't have a list attached to it. It's like a deep, deep feeling of connection that I can describe as a gratitude. So it's generalized. It's across the board. It isn't. I mean, I am grateful for elements of my life, but the biggest gratitude comes for having this opportunity to live,
Yeah.
and to learn, and to be able to, I think, trust that life will bring me exactly what I need. And so something that is fresh for me is that for years and years I wanted to be less critical, and I wanted not to have any judgmental thinking, because I'm very sensitive to when other people are judgmental, especially my husband. And so, I'd be critical of them being judgmental, which is really, funny if you think about it. And then I realised, well, this is same, isn't it? Any thought can come into my head. I don't have to get rid of any of them. And actually, they're not original thoughts. I wasn't born with an original thought, but I had the capacity for original thoughts. So that's just like that background buzz, isn't it? It's a bit like a ticker tape at the bottom of the main show, that I can miss the main show by looking at the ticker tape, hoping the ticker tape will make the show better, or I can, and I get the feelings of all those things, but I guess I know that life, I don't want to sound cliched really, but it feels like more and more there's less and less to do.
Oh, I like that. More and more, there's less and less to do.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Just, it's like more of a hands-off, but still being really involved. So it's a different kind of involvement, that I can get involved in the everyday activities. It's that sense of none of it's crucial to my well-being.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's okay to feel really upset, feel really miserable, don't actually get really angry. So maybe I'm still repressed in some areas. Just more of a relaxed state, really. And somebody in that class said, "Oh, so does that mean I've got to?" In answer to the yoga teacher was saying, "So, but how do I get rid of all the anxiety?" Because I'm sitting there in my relaxed pose, desperate to jump in and go, "No, don't put that out. It's on the way out." As soon as you've become conscious of it, it's already history in the making. So it's a bit. It literally is trying to close the stable door after the horses bolted. Forget it. It's already going off into the ether, and where it came. Where does it come from? Where does it go? We don't actually have to know, but we know that it's a constant process. So where would we like our attention to be? It's almost like a weather vane. So the weather vane doesn't choose north, does it? But if if we look at ourselves as in that same position, we will just naturally come to that direction that's best for us.
Yeah, and it's never it's always temporary, it's never permanent. So this state of anxiety or anger or whatever, it changes, it comes, it goes, it heightens, it settles, it rouses up, it's down again, it's in constant movement. It is. Somebody said that I was at a yoga class yesterday, and she talked about yoga being meditation in movement. I was like, oh, I like that.
That's nice, yeah.
And I was like, actually, that's life as well. It's like meditation got noisy.
Yeah, and one of the other expressions is that, when you take it with you when you leave the mat. And I was thinking, I used to be working so hard on understanding the principles without seeing that there's a certain irony in that there is no work to do, and that if I just allowed my understanding to be free, then it would take on what I need as an individual, because it's very, very impersonal and personal at the same time, it seems to me. It's like the drop of oil that goes to where you need it. So I would have said that I did all my life, I think, suffered from anxiety. But I had I had a really effective way of performing and behaving as if I didn't. So then it became quite lonely, because people would say, no, you can't be. You're always so kind of, ooh.
Yeah.
I'm not arguing with you now about how anxious I am, because then it begins to be a competition almost.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's the interesting thing. I thought anxiety would go. And what's happened, I think I would best describe it as it's quietened down. It's become a bit muffled. So I used to wait regularly in the morning, and suddenly within seconds, a bolt of kind of energetic feeling I'd label that as anxiety. Sometimes I might have a few moments where it wasn't there, and then I'd have a thought of something, and bang, there it would be. And I thought, well, that would be great if I can conquer that one and not be an anxious person. Well, the truth is, I was never an anxious person. I was a person who was paying attention and believing a lot of anxious thinking, and then trying to attend to the feelings of that anxious thinking brought with it. So I think what's nice to see now is that I can see it more playfully, and I don't want to try and diminish or minimize the depth of anxiety that people feel. Having said that, I have played with the idea of, oh, come on then, is that the best you can do today? Like, if you're so powerful, come on. And but I wouldn't have done that one time, because I had no idea where it was coming from.
Yeah,
the system.
And I've always said, when I see people like you, you and your family, I just think that must be amazing to have, think about, like your sister has been under the understanding, your brother-in-law, your nieces, the in-laws, and your own. I've seen, your own daughter and her husband have come along to Viva, and I just think that must be amazing. And then it's funny, because then, my brother came to one of my retreats, and then the next year his wife came along, and her sister came, and now her sister's doing the iHeart training with me in January. And so it's like, and yeah, all of a sudden it just spreads around, and that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and I think, we call that the ripple effect, don't we? And I think I was running up to people I thought looked like they were unhappy and trying to fix them. And that's not so much a ripple as a big crashing wave, isn't it?
You don't have to be sad anymore.
I used to look through that lens and see students on the way to college. I'd be driving past and think, oh, they shouldn't look so miserable. And I think, like, it's 7:45 in the morning, it's cold and a bit damp. They can be miserable if they want, it's fine. It's passing through. But I began to see everything as something that needed fixing, with this like nirvana, like one day we're all going to get to that place, that happy place, and actually we're already in that happy place.
Yeah,
it's just that we defined it so narrowly, that we created this, innocently created this huge problem, that we were trying to live to a definition as opposed, I think, to live to the flow of life.
Yeah.
And that life will, as I say, that this kind of what I was alluding to with the lessons is, it's not so much as there's specific lessons, although I think experiences have huge learning in them. Often we look at those retrospectively and say, oh, you know, the wisdom comes after. But I look at certain situations right from when I was, you know, a young teenager, when I was being looked after. You know, when you do those ridiculous things when you're young, I'm not going to tell you any of them.
Your secrets are safe.
They are.
They'll only be on YouTube.
Yes, exactly. But, you know, looking back at the risks that you take and the sort of dramas you get involved in, and I think there's something else was operating. Something else was operating that kept me. Again, it's like that true north thing, isn't it? That kept me looking after myself, even in situations where it didn't look like I was.
Kept you safe.
I think, yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Kept you safe. So you must have seen lots of things. So I think you've seen, haven't you? You know, being around this much longer than myself. I mean, you were introduced by Roger Mills, was it originally? Is that?
Well, credit to Dean Rhys Evans and his brother Blair for having come across this and bringing it into a little like conversation group in Colchester. And I think maybe the first or second little group I went to, I really didn't know what they were talking about, but it felt so hopeful, and it felt so, I don't know, so it was pulling me in, if you like. And then they were talking about having been on starting this training course with Dr. Roger Mills, and I, like, without any hesitation, thought that's where I want to be on that course. And I think I went. I think he was doing 4 a year, and I was on the very next one. I mean, knowing nothing really, but feeling everything. And that was, I mean, what a privilege, and what a memory of that. And Jenny was on there, and my other daughter, one of my other daughters, and yeah, so I mean, that was, I can't even remember when that must have been 2003 or 4. And
wow, yes, it's quite, you know, that's sort of, it's a long time ago now. That's
it is, yeah. I'm a slow learner, that's for sure.
Not got it yet.
What are we talking about? It's ridiculous.
So
I was lucky because and there have been moments where I've been in different situations, like at a conference or listening to. Remember one evening sitting listening to Keith Blevins, and Jack was staying at the same time, and they started talking about the old days when they were young, and you know, I could just picture them there with longer hair and the hippie clothes, and they were then talking about the principles as hippies, I guess. No offence.
No offence to all you hippies out there.
It's wonderful. I used to think I was one. But the feeling I had there was, gosh, it really feels like history in the making, that we're at the forefront, if you like pioneering days.
Absolutely.
That is going to, and is currently already making such changes.
Oh, it's
diminishing suffering for so many people, and there has to come that tipping point. I'm absolutely convinced of it.
Yeah, where it just, I mean, look at how incredible it's been in the last, 5 years. Sure. I mean, or is that just because that's the world that we live in now? And so it feels like everybody sees it. You go back out there and, but it feels like you see an article here and you're starting to just, it's more mainstream. There's more books, more TED Talks. It's just happening. It's just flowing out. The message gets around. And I remember you saying to me at the very beginning, when I thought I'd come across, I was like, my goodness, all you guys in the room all seem to be so knowledgeable, and you'd been around this and you were trying to share this with other people, and you were there to learn the best way that Jack suggests, sort of promoted doing that or suggested doing that, and to learn from him. And I remember you looking at me and you said to me, this is the one. That's all you said. This is the one. Let's just keep looking here. This is the one. And I never forget that. you know. And so it was so nice to have your presence in that room when I was first introduced to this, and there were beautiful souls in there. But you know, thank you, Sue, for all the gentleness and the kindness and that you bring into any circle that you're in, because it really is there's so much grace that comes with you. So
blushing.
yeah. Thank you. And you are one of those very special, fabulous people, and it's a no-brainer that you were going to be part of the 90 and 90.
I think it's wonderful that you're doing this, because it's another form of connection. And as when you talk about those early days, it wasn't easy to feel connected, because for me, who's grown up with ideas of hierarchy, and you could talk to this person, but you couldn't talk to that person. So the only people I knew about were Dr. Roger Mills and Dr. Bill Pettit and Dr. George Pransky and well, of course, Sydney Banks, who I was very fortunate enough to spend some time with.
Yeah.
I think it was that feeling of, well, who else can I connect? You know, who is there? And on the course with Roger, I think we worked out there might have been 40 people in the UK at that time, 40, 50 maybe. And I didn't meet them all, but you pretty much knew everybody, one way or another. And that's how Space for Connection was born, really. The idea of, actually, what I want to do is connect. I want to be with people who are also curious and have felt the beginnings of a new understanding, literally, whose world has been tipped completely in moments. I mean, not all the time, because as I say, I was working really hard to keep the tilt, you know, like, oh no, is it true, is it? Oh, it looks true. No, it's not true. And I think that the connection piece is really important. So what I see you're doing here now is you're putting out into the world. It's becoming, let's not say mainstream, but this is becoming a more usual way to see the world and to understand the world. And it's of its time, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Because once you really start, I think, living this, when it starts living you, it's increasingly obvious that, well, in my opinion, it's increasingly obvious that this misunderstanding is taking us down. And the antidote to that is to see the things that we thought were true are actually part of this huge illusion. And there is a truth beyond all of that awaits us. I mean, I used to think, wow, I wonder what that would be then, because I've got my truths and I know that they're just my truths now. But actually, I no longer have a hankering or a desire. I just think, well, it's all around me. This is it. This is life. This is the truth. The truth of life is in the living. Anyway, rambling.
No, but it's lovely, because it's all around us, and I think that's what I'm hearing you saying, that the message hasn't changed from the first moment you would have heard about it until now. But even now, whether that's 16 years later or 15 years later, some of it is still only just peeling away now.
Totally.
And you still see it deeper, differently, again. You know, when you hear that message, be it, you know, it doesn't finish on the yoga mat or whatever, you know, it's like we start to see it in everything. When I just came back from gospel choir, you know, and I hear the message in the songs, and they might be talking about in the gospel songs, talk a lot about Jesus or God or whatever, but it's the same thing. If we were to swap those words for energy or mind or love, or it's the same. It's the same. It's like, you know, it's all around us, always has been, inside of us, always has been, always will be. And
it's started off in life, isn't it? Laughing for no reason, being happy, no particular reason, being well, usually I think when we're tiny, there is a reason, but they're very simple reasons, like I'm uncomfortable, sort me out, or I'm hungry, feed me. And then we start to look outside of us for the causes for those other feelings, and there's a whole lot of stuff out there. I mean, I waded through, I'm sure you must have done as well, waded through this school and that school of psychology, search. That's why I think when I found this is why it would lead me to say this is the one.
yeah.
This is
And you said
Like
that
they're
with,
different.
yeah, and you did say it with such that I remember that, you know, this is the one. Just keep looking, keep looking, keep looking here. This is the one that's going to, you know, as it were. And that's how I describe it. It ticked all the boxes.
Yeah.
It ticked all the boxes for me. Not saying that I condone bad behavior, but I see the innocence behind all human behavior now, given the thinking that somebody's having, their behavior makes perfect sense to me.
Absolutely, as it does, yes. And it cleared that up for me, because as a young teenager, I remember never feeling this strong hatred or condemnation of people, let's say, who were in prison, or who had done things that people really disapproved of. And I thought there was something I was missing. I thought, well, you obviously, you know, there must be something wrong with you, because I didn't meet other people who'd said it. So I think there was a sense in which I understood the innocence of it, but I couldn't have explained it.
Mm.
And so when the psychological innocence so described was wonderful to hear, because I thought, oh, that's what I was experiencing. And then, of course, you know, there are consequences, and that's true for somebody who's done something seriously wrong, or for you, or for me. If I want my relationship to prosper and to be full of love, then I need to be the love that I am, not be doing it conditionally, like, well, you're a bit grumpy today, I'll be a bit grumpy. And I have to say, that is one of the traps I fall into. Well, and then I remember, I think it's not about the other person. So, you know, that those judgment thoughts, those critical thoughts that come and go, just let them go. They're going anyway. You can hang on to them for a while if you want, but I think it's more about just showing up in the feeling that you glimpse when you start to understand where feelings come from.
Mm. Yeah, it's so true. You know, just it is that simple. All feelings come from thought, and all thoughts pass.
Yeah, yeah,
And so, aren't we lucky?
yeah. Very, very lucky.
So, thank you for sharing your life lessons, and and it's not that you're telling anybody what to do. It's just seeing there's an understanding that the lessons just teach themselves to us. And that's what makes it so easy, without any lists, without any number one, number two, number three.
Having said that, it doesn't matter anyway, because that was the journey I've been on with the seeking and searching, even with the principles, that understanding. I still just was looking for complication, I think. Well, looking for making it complicated. But that doesn't matter either, because I just kind of moseyed on down, kept looking in a direction, kept meeting fabulous people and wonderful teachers. So it kind of took care of itself. So I wouldn't even say that one shouldn't do that.
Sure. It will.
You do, it's always the best you can do. So
we're just all on the journey, and the caterpillar turns into the butterfly when it's ready, you know. And
absolutely.
If we tried to crack open the chrysalis, we'd kill it.
Yes.
So
yeah.
who are we? Sometimes I think that, who am I to rush somebody's journey? But when people end up in places like addiction centers or rehabs, or then it feels like it's kind of like, you know what, there's something super helpful that might just might be good to hear.
Can be the really simplest of all things, can't it? Like, you don't have to believe all you're thinking. Sometimes that's such a revelation to people. It sets them off on their journey.
Just because a thought pops into your head, it doesn't mean it's true. No. And it's just a seed. It really is just a seed, and it will come up maybe in days later, or hours later, weeks later, months later, years later.
And if you're waiting for a daffodil, don't be surprised if a tulip comes along.
Because they're all flowers.
They are indeed, and you're not necessarily, you're not in charge of the seed either, are you? So
it's so true. We just see what pops up, literally.
Yeah.
You know,
and it's funny, isn't it? Because you could have all these tulips. Let's not stretch the metaphor too far. All these tulips, and you're going, yeah, but I'm still looking for my daffodil.
Yeah, and it's and when we see that, it's like expecting to meet somebody in your life, and you actually haven't realized that there's already life all around you. Yes. You know, it's just not coming maybe the package that you thought it was going to. So we miss out what's already under our nose. We
Yeah.
miss out. You know, sometimes we're
Yeah.
looking for love when we've surrounded in love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah. So with your daffodils and your tulips, and thank you, you little flower.
Oh, thank you. Sunflower, you.
So lots of love. Thank you for being part of this series. Thank you
Thank
to
you.
everybody who's listened. I hope you enjoyed the beautiful, graceful Sue Pankiewicz.
Well, thank you. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you, Sue.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye bye.